What's up, everybody? It's your favorite remix's favorite nerd. Today we are talking about the customization I have done for the Zeta Toys Armageddon. Now, to say that I have done it is a bit misleading. My buddy Adam greatly helped me. For those that are listening, Adam is my co-host on Nerd Rage Radio. He's also the head of Beer and Bolters 40K, which you can find on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. He's a really good painter. He's won Golden Demon Awards for his paint jobs, etc., etc. And he was more than willing to help me out. We've been childhood friends. We've grown up. He's like my brother. My kids call him Uncle. So he agreed to help me out. And what I really wanted to change here was the blues on the legs as well as the blues on the chest, and then turning those to different shades of gray and then adding the different colors to the chest plate as it is for the more blast-off looking color scheme. I don't like the idea of Blast-Off's wings becoming the chest plate. I never have. This is totally his subjective review. It's not even a review. It's just a video, but it's totally subjective because it's just what I wanted it to look like, and my buddy Adam was more than willing to help me facilitate it. Now, what he's doing here is he's priming it. So he's taped off a large portion, and I think the only thing that he primed really was the chest plate, and that's because there's so much different colors and variations that need to go into the chest plate to kind of give it a cohesive feel. So he primed it with just a black primer, like for an airbrush. You don't need to get too worried about it. I will be giving the name brands and stuff of everything else, but you don't need to worry too much about this in particular. But he just gave it a primer. It helps the paint stick. It makes it more adhesive, and then it also it doesn't help necessarily bring out the vibrancy because you have to overcome the black when you add on the next coat, but it adds a level of realism, I feel like. I'm a big fan of black primer. I used to be a white primer guy when I would paint stuff or customize stuff, but now I'm pretty much a black primer because it makes it look a little bit more realistic, which is one of the things that I was going for. I never wanted it to look G1. I always wanted it to look G1 if G1 were real life. That's kind of my thing. So now he's adding in the next color, which is the charcoal-esque color, and that is, I don't know how to pronounce this. It sounds French or something, but it's miniature, I don't know. You can see it on there. And the color is charred stone. So I used this for the kind of charcoal gray that I believe is supposed to be a black in the cartoon, but they just didn't want to go full black because it's hard to shadow or highlight or what have you. So they went with this kind of really dark gray. And I kind of wanted to do the same because I didn't necessarily want it to be a jet black. Now, what we did do that I don't show here in terms of the paint job is we added some silver to the grates and then gave it a black wash. But that's easy enough to do. You just have to be careful. You have to be a little patient. It doesn't take skill. A lot of this stuff I always try to emphasize, it doesn't take skill. It takes technique. Now, what we're doing here, and I say we because I like to take a little bit of credit, but what he's doing here is taping off sections so that when he goes to add the next layer of paint, he doesn't have to worry about overspray. And that's what it looks like when it's done. So now he's adding in the brown. Now, this brown is from a company called Made Air, I believe, and the color is flat brown. And I'll show the bottle here in a second. But this is to add the brown of Blast Off, and that's my buddy's feet. His toe is always reaching out to the left. I don't know what's going on with that. That's crazy. He needs to get a grip. I also pointed out earlier to him that his other toes were like gripping the carpet. He's got to relax. But this flat brown, it matches the Zeta fairly well, but it also gives enough spirit of the G1 animation colors. I like that because it looks cohesive, it looks part of the set, but it also helps tie it in a little bit closer to the G1. So I definitely recommend that color. It worked out really well. And he was very careful in his application, as you can see. He's taking great care with it and pride with it, as he does with most things, and I appreciate that about the way that he approaches his craft. He takes a lot of things seriously, maybe sometimes too seriously, but you can find out more about that on Nerd Rage Radio. He also talks a lot about airbrushing and stuff, and I'm not sure what I'm doing there, but he talks a lot about airbrushing and his experiences with airbrushing, and he's gotten really good with it. It's definitely its own technique. There's the paint if you want to look it over. You can just pause it and screenshot it. You guys are tech savvy. I know what's going on with you guys. You guys are going to be fine. Don't worry about it. All right. And he's just tightening it up. We're almost finished with the brown, and then he moves on And I think we move on to the purple next. So this is the purple, and this is from the miniature again, and it is ECHYMOSE. Echymos? I don't know. What am I? A linguist? I don't know that. But there it is right there. You can screenshot it. And it's also the barcode, so you should be able to find it. But he, what's funny about this is he had a different color that he offered first, and I was all for it. And then he found this one, and he suggested it, but I was kind of married to the first one. I ended up changing my mind at the last second and going with this one, and I'm much happier with it. Now, it doesn't match Blast Off as well, but it matches the G1 model more, and it ends up tying them both together and then back to the G1 model. So it's kind of the same kind of thought process as we did with the brown, and it ends up working really well, at least in my opinion. Some of this is going to be darker than what people wanted, because a lot of people want it to look just like the cartoon, and that's not my bag. I want it to look like the cartoon if the cartoon were real. So now we're doing the legs, and this is actually a metallic paint. It doesn't show up great here in the fact that it's metallic, but it's definitely a metallic paint, which gives it a more mature look. Fans Toys uses a lot of metallic paints. DX9 actually uses a lot of metallic paints. I'm a big fan of them myself. This particular, that's Alex and a couple other guys. I'll talk about that in a minute. This particular brand is from Citadel, and it's Liebelcher. It used to be what Bolt Gun Metal was. You should be able to find it. These are guys from the Beer and Bolters Club. Adam and I are both big on community. We're big on community ownership, fan ownership of the franchises that we love and, give a lot of money to over the years. So this is part of his club, and they get together and play games, and they've kind of built their own community, and it's really good. Now, I painted the eyes myself due to their recommendations, mainly Alex and Adam, and they suggested that I give a base color of this bright silver over the eyes, which is the Citadel Storm Host Silver. And then on top of that, you add the technical paint from Citadel, which is Spirit Stone Red, and it gives like a vibrant, almost glowing effect to it. It's a little bright for my taste. It's not exactly what I had in mind, but it works really well, and I have to admit, it's in a relatively dark corner of my shelf, and it 100% pops. This is me trying to figure out my camera. 5 years in, I still don't have it down right. This is adding on the gray, and this is just this is from that same company, Made Air, and this is the color light gray. And we added this to the torso section, and we ended up just keeping the pelvis piece intact, so we didn't have to add anything else to that. Just added this to the torso, the chest, the flank, etc. And it ended up doing the job fairly well. So I recommend that for your use. It ended up looking so good. And unfortunately, the camera doesn't bring out a lot of the metallic flecks and that metallic paint that's on the legs, but it's really good. And there it is. And I just can't begin to express how happy I am with it. Like, it's just so perfect to me. Like, the Bruticus of my dreams. The care that he took with it, the advice that he was able to offer on how to do the eyes, like, it all just came together so beautifully. I love the chest design. Like, I much prefer this style chest over the blast-off wings, because it just looks more menacing to me. And then to add in the color that's from the G1 model just kind of brings it together for me. So I much prefer this. I'll show it to you on my shelf, and I'll superimpose it here while I continue talking about it. I know my combiner shelf looks a little empty. I broke down most of my old ones and are using them currently as bot mode. It just looks so good to me, man. And it means a lot to have this in my collection because he worked on it, and he has like art of mine in his home, and he's a great painter, so it's nice to have some of his work in my home kind of on display. So it's a real pleasure. It means an awful lot more to me now. Plus, I'll always remember, Titan One and GCI taking the time to really get it to me in effort. I threw a repro label on the chest for good measure as well. I should give them a shout out. But I just think, it's not perfect. It's got its issues, but it's such a good looking combiner, and it is super stable. It takes a little bit more balancing because of the weight in the midsection, but it's so well done, and it just looks tremendous. So I hope this video was able to help you if you were considering doing something like this. And I'd like to thank Adam again, thank GCI, thank Titan One, thank Repro Labels, why not, for supplying that service as well. And thank you guys for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.